Welcome to Southern Sense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chickadee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at Southern Sense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, southernsense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey.
All right, and welcome back to another adventure here on Southern Sense. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, Annie the Chickadee, along with a guest co-host because my friend Hannah Davis is having a little surgery today. Everything's okay, so hopefully she'll be back with us next week. But instead, I've got the one, the only, the handsome Josh Perry.
Glad to be with you.
Hey, I managed to do that without messing up the beginning.
There
This
you
is a
go.
first. You're good luck.
Well, no pressure. We're only on live stream, so only the whole world can see you mess up.
Oh, well, to be honest, we are up also currently on Twitter, but Twitter and I, or X, I should say, are having a little bit of a pissing contest because I like to put my show out and I do a little ad to help people find me a little bit better. I'm not selling anything. I'm just letting people know I'm out there.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided to not exactly ban, but to lock me out. So I've been going back and forth with them. So if anyone's out there on Twitter right now and can't find us, just send a message over to Elon Musk and tell him we want Southern Sense back right now. Because I did send a couple of messages over to him saying, hey, I thought you took this over to protect our freedom of speech. But anyway, you can find us at LinkedIn, YouTube. What the heck is this? Rumble, Substack. What is this? You are on Twitch. Oh, yes, we're live on Twitch now. I don't know where we are, but we're all over the place. But we got ourselves a great show lined up. A good friend of our show is coming back, Steve Goreham. He's the executive director of the Climate Science Coalition. He's got a new book out, and it's called The Mad, Mad, Mad World of Climatism. We're going to be talking about him and a lot of stuff that's going on, including these crazy wildfires. We've got a new one up in France now. It's absolutely outrageous. And you notice they come in clusters. So it makes me wonder whether or not there's actually someone physically behind these wildfires. It's a good question to ask. We also have a J6'er. We've had Jake Lang on, who's the longest held J6'er a couple of times. Matter of fact, when he first came out of prison, he was still at DMV with his mom. And he called into the show. So we had him and his mom at a DMV. But this is John Strand, and he's running for Florida District 16. And we're going to be talking to him. He's got a lot of great ideas. And right now, Josh, you were saying he seemed to be leading in the race. So fingers crossed. And let's hope this midterm is a big turnaround for Republicans.
Well, candidate Strand has the leading, most influential endorsements in the race. He's got Turning Point Action behind him, which we know is a juggernaut for turning out the vote, especially among our younger voters.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. He's a young, vibrant young man. He had a fantastic career before all this happened. And I won't mention that he was an underwear model, ladies.
That may help him.
That may help him. He is a good-looking kid, but this old droid is well past that stuff. But we got a lot going on. Also, tonight is the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And, you know, I kept on hearing about it all week, but I never heard exactly what time or date. And they've been keeping this a little bit more under wraps since the original one. And let's hope this one goes off without hitch.
Yeah, the last one.
I'm sorry. I just keep on looking at the video, and it's like I want to jump through the screen and just slap a couple of those security guys over the back of the head. Like, where are you looking? What are you paying attention to?
Right. The last Correspondence Center was eventful for reasons it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, I also understand that Marco Rubio and JD Vance will not be there at this one. So they're starting to spread people out so you don't have the succeeding individuals behind the president if should he get killed. I mean,
Right.
just common sense. Common
It,
sense.
it's something that you hope doesn't happen, but something you must plan for, right? So we're having a correspondence dinner. We know what happened in the correspondence dinner the last time they held it. It was a breach of security that should have never happened, and it placed the president in harm's way. So what you don't want is you don't want your vice president, your president, and your succeeding members all within the same room who could, potentially receive harm themselves, and then we're left in this country in a void of leadership.
Communities
So
across the state.
you have to have them dispersed.
Yeah, they definitely do. I just want to remind people that those that do watch us know that each and every show is dedicated to a fallen hero, whether they're a first responder, law enforcement, firefighter, emergency services, or whether or not they have served or are serving in the military. From the birth of this nation through to today and the actions today, active and veteran. And unfortunately, the video I did plan, it got a little fouled up in the transition. So I do deeply apologize for that. But today's dedication is going out to Sergeant Joseph Apodaca of the Taos County Sheriff's Office in New Mexico. His end of watch, ironically, was on the anniversary of my wedding to my late husband. It's on Friday, May 22nd of this year. And unfortunately, I don't have, as I said, the video, so it's coming off what I remember. And Officer Apodaca had served for 18 years. I'm sorry, 8 years on the Taos, New Mexico. He was now on motorcycle patrol. They were responding to a reckless vehicle that was driving and putting others individuals in dire danger, and he was responding to that when another trooper was coming through in a pickup truck, and they both made the turn, unfortunately, basically at the same time. Officer Apodaca's motorcycle hit the driver's door, and unfortunately, he did not survive his injuries. So once again, today's dedication is going to go out to Sergeant Joseph Apodaca of the Taos County Sheriff's Office in New Mexico. And to him, we will play this dedicated song from Tiffany. And here we go. Soul of the Nation. Come on. And we're not getting much cooperation here. Here we go.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm to our convictions with wide open hearts, eager strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for all the next generation. Let it be said, oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for all the next generation.
All right, and we're back. You're here listening to Southern Sense live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, X, Substack, Rumble, and everywhere else. Just want to mention a little side note. I had a sad little bit of a news I didn't expect. There's a friend of the show, a good friend of mine, also Sam Faddis, former CIA operative. He runs And magazine that you can find up on Substack. And unfortunately, he developed from post-COVID an intestinal lung disease and pneumonia, and he's awaiting a lung transplant. So all of our prayers do go out to Sam and his staff over at and we wish him a swift and speedy recovery and return back to our fold. So Sam, you are in our prayers. God bless you, Sam. All right. That always this is what drives me nuts because people don't tell you the truth about COVID, and here we have someone that's suffering from the post remnants of it. Believe it or not, my sister, she took 2 vaccines, and she's been dealing with the remnants of long COVID and everything. I just wish that we don't have to go through that again, but unfortunately, I think that we will end up doing that for the way things
Uh,
are going today. I don't mean to sound depressing. Oh man, there's so much that's going on today. Here in South Carolina, we have Lindsey Graham who passed away recently, and we are having on August 3rd, a Monday, a debate between all the candidates that are now running up for Lindsey Graham's seat. And when I last counted at my Tea Party meeting on Monday, I counted 6 candidates. As I understand, a couple more people threw their hats in the ring. One of them, our former governor and former Congressman Mark Sanford. I got to give it to Mark. You know, I do know him. His
yeah.
family actually has gone to my church, so I see his brother a lot and his nephew. But he's got his hat in the ring still for the congressional seat for CD1 that Nancy Mace currently holds. But he's also threw his hat for the governor's race, too. No, not Nancy Mace's race. He moved it from Nancy Mace's seat over to the state Senate seat. I got to get this correct. He's moved around a lot. He was on CD1, now he's going over to the Senate, but he also has his hat in for the governor's seat. I don't think that's going to go too far because another friend of mine, the state attorney general, Alan Wilson, is leading on that one. So I think the state of South Carolina will remain red.
I don't see it changing anytime soon.
No. But Nancy Mace is not going to have a position come January 1st or 3rd or whatever the day of swearing in is. She lost the governor's bid and she didn't choose to reelect herself. So we're
Right.
going to have Jenny Honeycutt in that slot. And it looks like Rittenhouse will be the lieutenant governor under Alan Wilson. So we'll see what now happens for Lindsey Graham. His
Woof.
sister has also thrown herself into the ring also. And people go, well, it's just his sister. What does she know? But she was also his confidant. So she traveled with him a lot of occasions. So she knows what's going on. She knows the people, she knows the players, she knows the issues. And already she's already said some places where she's just veering a little away from where Lindsey Graham was very strict and
Mhm.
stern. She's going to be a little bit more flexible, it seems. Um, she wants to concentrate more on domestic issues than so much more on foreign issues.
You're there on the ground in South Carolina. You're talking to voters day in and day out. What are you hearing there in South Carolina? Who is their favorite? Is there a predominant favorite, or is it up in the air for that seat?
It is right now completely up in the air. As a matter of fact, I keep on telling people to go to this one website, and I'm going to do that as we're here. It's called Politics One, the number one, not the word one. And if I spell this politics correctly, I can do this. It is a great, great research tool. If you want to know anyone that's running on the federal stage or nationally, you go to
Hmm.
Politics One, and this is telling me to relive. Here we go. And you can pull up just about any race, depending upon what state you're looking at. So I'm clicking on South Carolina right at the moment. And for scrolling down here a little bit, U.S. senators. So we have Darlene Graham, she's on the top. Duke Buckner, who is a former councilman for the city of Walterboro, an attorney, and he's run constantly. A new guy, Russell Fry, who's holding a meet and greet in my town tonight. He's a congressman himself and an ex-state representative. Mark Lynch was the leader right behind Lindsey Graham before he passed away. He's a local businessman.
Hmm.
And he also ran for the state senate back in 20. Mark McBride, former mayor of Myrtle Beach, former councilman. There's a new name I don't recognize. Oh, but catch this. Oh, I love this guy. Clark Nielsen, Neilson, running as a Republican. And his forte is a resident of North Carolina. You, you can't make some of this stuff up. You really can't.
I don't think the voters of South Carolina will take too kindly to a carpetbagger.
Especially they pronounce the city's name as Beaufort, and we say Beaufort. You say
Buford,
Beaufort,
yeah.
you know it's North Carolina. You say Beaufort, you know you're South Carolina. This guy's a frequent candidate. Also, Ralph Norman. He is a congressman here. Um,
Hmm.
and he's got a pretty good record. And we've got Bentley Oliver. Oh, wait a minute. This guy's perfect. I'm sorry. This guy's absolutely perfect. His forte, he is a mental health therapist. You can't make this up.
Sounds like he's running. Did you see that Oh no, it was the Maine Democrat primary debate last week
Mm.
where one of the
Oh,
candidates, a
oh yeah,
transgendered candidate, stated
yeah,
that their experience to run for office was that they had ran for office previously, and that's what they
yeah,
touted as their accolades.
yeah, and wrote and published her own books.
Yeah.
Uh, we also have Mark Sanford, as we were discussing, and then this is new guy also. This guy's a biochemical engineer, and believe it or not, Sam Shepard,
Hmm.
not an actor, but Sam
It,
Shepard.
which one, other than Darlene Graham carrying the last name of her late brother, which one do you think holds the most water to carry it across the finish line?
I would say it's tossed between three. Um, this guy, Russell Fry, that
Hmm.
everyone in the state knows because he is a congressman. Mark Lynch, because he heavily campaigned prior to Lindsey Graham winning the seat, winning the nomination, I should say. And the other guy, Ralph Norman. I say those would be the top three. And as I understand, Darling Graham is not polling as high as we thought she would. But like I said, we've got until what is it,
Hmm.
August 11th? Oh, I had my sheet of the actual dates. You know what? It's dummy me. It's up on the politics one. Gives you even not just the candidates, but the dates. Um, Primary, and they haven't updated this. They're showing the primary still back on June 23rd. I believe it's August 21st. I'm not going to swear by that date, but it's somewhere around there.
Do you
Um,
believe that the reason Darlene Graham is not polling as high as she was expected to is simply to the fact that a lot of South Carolinians do not want a coronation for their next senator. They prefer to have an actual election and not someone who's already dubbed by the party as the next successor to Lindsey Graham.
I think there's two handicaps. First off, the people don't know her. They don't know
Hmm.
anything about her. From my industry, she was a statistician. Someone else posted a rather not too nice post about her earlier, just before I came on air,
Hmm.
that she did hold a position in the government as a bureaucrat or something like that. And this individual trashed her. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know much about her outside of the name and the fact that people don't know her. That may be two of
Hmm.
her biggest handicaps.
I think
Because,
that, when President Trump was elected, he didn't just beat a Jeb Bush or Hillary Clinton. He did away with the dynasties. The
yeah,
Clinton dynasty, the Bush dynasty, the McCains. He stopped all of it. So I'm wondering if this is just a natural trickle effect in South Carolina, an aversion to carrying on the last name just simply because it's the last name.
well, it's a possibility. It is a possibility. Um, but like I think her biggest handicap is people really don't know her. And if
Right.
she got out in front of people and started to speak, they may find that she is different than her brother, and it might
I
be a
did see
benefit.
that. I saw where she mentioned she would be more focused on domestic policy rather
Yeah,
than foreign diplomacy, which was the opposite of Senator Lindsey Graham.
yeah. I mean, he was a security border hawk,
Hmm.
and in many ways that's good. But also you have to know. Sometimes you have to tone down the rhetoric and speak with your actions more than your mouth,
Hmm.
and because it becomes empty words unless you know for a fact that it's going to be followed through with. And
Right.
I think that's where Trump's forte lies in doing that. You know, um, when he did uh, win as president number 45, I kept screaming at the TV screen, dump everyone there now and do a complete fresh start.
Right.
His problem with his first term was that he held on to a lot of people, that just bureaucrats that just dragged him down.
Hmm.
And he still has a bunch of them sitting there behind him. He's got to weed them out. So, who will succeed him, be it Rubio or J.D. Vance or someone else, I don't know. But whoever comes in has to do another complete clearing of the house.
Correct. And I think if we can hold on to the midterms, which I do believe is a fight, it's an uphill battle, but it's not impossible. To do anything that's hard has a poetic sense to it, given the fact that we are in the 250th anniversary of our nation's founding. They created from nothing a nation that had never been seen before, not even imaginable. They just said, we think this can work and we think we can establish the greatest country on God's earth. And they did that. If we can hold on to the midterms, we can prevent President Trump going through impeachment trials for the next 2 years, which will just bottleneck all the America First policies within his administration.
Well, there is some truth to that, but having been someone that had seen the 200, the 200, and now the 250th, it's a completely different feeling. You know, Back then in 1976, we were coming out of the Vietnam War.
Hmm.
We were now starting to come back onto the road of recovery. Uh, I won't forgive Jimmy Carter, but I did vote for Ronald Reagan the first time.
Everyone but Minnesota voted for Ronald Reagan in 1984.
But it was a completely different atmosphere, and it didn't matter what side of the aisle you were on. Everyone cheered. Everyone was cheering for us and looking for the next 50 years, 25, 50 years. And it's a completely different feeling. There's more of, I feel, a tamping down by the anti-Americans, by the democratic socialists of America. I
Right.
mean, it has become so pervasive that it's suddenly okay to push communism here in this nation. And you said something important that our founders believed, that our founders, or what was the word you actually said? That they came forward and they formed this, but in in their documents they said we hold these truths to be self-evident. So it's not just that they felt this way; they truly believed it in their heart and their soul.
Right.
And that's the difference. And that's what I felt in 76, but I don't feel it today. Not holding these truths to be self evident that we are all created equal, that our rights are endowed not by government, like communists want to do, like the socialists want to do, but by God. And what was it Benjamin Franklin said, that we had to be a moral nation unless we would lose it, a
Right.
republic unless we defend it. And every time I hear someone say, well, this is democracy, ooh, I want to pull my hair out. I'm going, no, it's a democratically elected republic.
Right.
And the foundation of that republic, the building upon which this nation stands, that foundation is cement. That foundation is the Constitution. You chip away at it, you destroy it, the whole structure will collapse.
Right. And I think part of that is attributed to one, illiteracy within the government school structure. Every time you hear someone say America's a democracy, I can almost 99% tell you they went to a public school
Mm-hmm.
every time. And that's by design, especially if they went to a 4-year public university. By design, they want people to believe that America is a democracy, not a constitutional republic. The other part of that is there is natural political burnout. People get burned out. I mean, we've been at this fight now for 10 years with President Trump, fighting the establishment, fighting the globalists and the communists, the socialists, which are all one big group, anti-American, when you, at the end of the day, if you put it together. However, we don't get the luxury of not contending in the trenches for political policy. We don't get that luxury. Neither did our forefathers. They had to fight a war that we don't have to fight. Yet we complain a lot about the political burnout, or many people do. All we have to do is go to the voting booth to establish change and order within our society. And too many people are too lazy to do it. Just look at our Republican and Democrat primaries.
As I was telling you prior to coming on air, um, I still run a tea party for 17 years. I may be one of the last ones standing in the nation. But the second I come before someone, they go, oh, her. Okay, we better stop and listen. I'm not bragging on myself. I find it absolutely amazing that sometimes I'll have someone, call me up and say, well, I was told to speak to you. And I said, who am I? I'm just a nobody.
Right.
I'm just a talking head on the TV screen or a computer screen or whatever you're watching on. But I feel firmly in the beliefs of this nation. And I'm not afraid to speak out. I never
Right.
have been. And my first editorial, I was just graduating high school. 1 month later, my editorial was being produced in the newspaper and was about the bicentennial. And I'm not afraid to speak out, but what I try to tell everyone is that all politics starts local. So
Oh, absolutely.
if you're afraid to say anything on the national stage or anything like that, that's all right. But get involved in your local community. Because who you elect in your local community, whether it's a dog catcher or a councilman or whatever it is, they eventually will climb up the food chain, and they will remember you and what you said to them. So not just vote for them, but send them an email. Pop in their local election office, talk to them. Show up at some of the county council meetings or watch them on your computer. A lot of these are now being broadcast on the computer.
All
And if
right.
you don't like what you see being said, send them an email. Believe it or not, they will remember you. We had Beer Can Joe Cunningham as our representative at one point before Nancy Mace knocked him off the seat. But I walked in there because of something that was going on he was doing. Oh, he was behind the impeachment with the Trump. I walked in, and they actually keep a roster who walks in and what you talk about. So if you've got your congressman's office near where you live and work, just walk in. They'll sit down, they'll talk to you. They want to
Yeah.
know what you have to say. So if one person walks in, it's like, oh, all right, this one person. But when you get 3 or 4, now the ears start to perk up.
Right.
You now have 8, it becomes an issue. As little as 8 people can make it an issue on the political stage.
Yeah, politics is never outgrowing grassroots activism. Because at the end of the day, we are all activists in some sense or fashion, and we practice activism throughout our daily lives. If you have a problem with your driver's license, what do? You go down and you are active on your own behalf at the DMV. You have to be an activist about what you're putting in your body, your clean food, clean water. It's no different when it comes to politics, but for whatever reason, it has a stigma behind it, right? Oh, well, they're not going to listen to me. I'm just one person. Well, you might just be one person, but you might be that one extra person that came after the other 10 that you don't know about who has pushed this congresswoman or congressman to enact change that benefit Americans.
Yeah. Well, Josh, we do have our guest. He was having a little internet problem, but we do have Steve Gorman with him. So the one, the only, Steve Gorman. Hello,
Welcome,
Steve.
Steve.
How are you today? Can
Is
you hear
that
us, Steve?
is that Josh?
Yeah, that is Josh. Josh
Yes,
Perry.
sir.
Very good to connect with you, Josh.
Great to connect with you, Mr. Gorman.
Yeah, Hannah is having a little surgery today, so she's not with us today, unfortunately. My prayers are with her, but we do have Josh that's willing to sit here and be with us. Oh man, but we have a lot to talk about here, Steve. I have to look at all my notes. You got a new book out called "The Mad, Mad, Mad World of Climatism." I mean, I just happen to love that title. So where this is supposed to be showing up, and it's not showing up. Why isn't it popping up?
That's actually my
There we
second book.
go. All right, so I'm missing one. Okay.
My second book, and yeah, it tells the complete story of climatism, as I call it, the ideology that is the fear of man-made global, and talks about the history and all the things going on, and then some on energy as well.
Well, a lot of things that are going on right now. We're finding some of these countries are starting to pull back from this client wokeism or whatever you want to call it. One of
Yeah,
them being Canada. We're also seeing it in other countries over in Europe, and even the UN in some areas is starting to pull back. Um, is our message, your message, finally getting through, or has the economics of it finally hit them in the head like a baseball bat? You like the metaphor? Oh, well, Steve has been having internet problems. I'm hoping he just did not get disconnected. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. He had a hard time signing in. It's climate change affecting the
Yeah.
internet. Oh no, Steve, you're gonna have to try to sign back in. Oh, all right, guys, we're just gonna have to wait for Steve to try to come back in and live with us. He's frozen right now. God bless. I saw
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
But this is a question you see, like the UN starting to pull back.
Yeah.
Um, you're seeing areas in Europe, like the UK, starting to pull a little bit back on this climate change stuff. So I'm wondering if now the other nations are realizing the burden that's being placed on them with this green energy. It costs more than it's worth.
Well, the other part of that equation that they don't speak about is what are the health ramifications for having these green, new, renewable energies, as they say. For example, the United Kingdom has been undergoing heat waves, yet they completely despise air conditioning. And you might think, well, how do we lower heat strokes? How about some air conditioning? How about a little bit of first world inventions?
Or as we see, Steve, in France, they've already had a large number of people that died because they cut back on the air conditioning. These rolling blackouts and brownouts, it's just not working.
Most of the French schools aren't air conditioned. It actually was a big issue in the last election, that they should be air conditioned and they're not. And a lot of people over there, unfortunately, regard it as a bad thing because of this climate nonsense. But we were just talking, sorry to leave you again. Hopefully the internet will stay on here. The new Prime Minister, Mark Carney in Canada, has retreated from the Justin Trudeau policies on climate, and he calls them too expensive and too divisive. He has rolled back a lot of the restrictions on oil and gas, and he's building pipelines across the country. And so it's a real big change. And Carney was, this is a guy, he was a big envoy for the United Nations. He was, just a second here. He was he was appointed by Antonio Gutierrez. And for the last 6 years, he's been the United Nations Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance. But now he gets in a position in Canada and he's rolling a lot of this stuff back. And as you mentioned, across the world, we see this in England. We have the Reform UK under Nigel Farage, and they've coined the phrase net stupid zero. And they want to get rid of all the green policies. In Germany, we have the Alternative for Deutschland. That's, by the way, on Reform UK is polling #1 right now. In Germany, Alternative for Deutschland is polling #2, and they've talked about tearing down all the wind turbines. And then we have two parties in Australia, the Nationals and the Liberals, last fall, each voted to reject net zero as one of their policies. So we see this, it's not only Mr. Trump, there's a bunch of leaders and parties around the world that are saying this is just too expensive and isn't really going to make a difference.
Steve, in your book, The Green Breakdown, you talk about how wind and solar is already failing. For the general population that's not really studying the issue, can you give some examples that back up what you're saying? Because it is failing, but what can the general population look to see, hey, this forced transition is not working?
Yeah, there's a few things going on. One is, when a technology is small, it can grow very fast. But once it gets sort of like nuclear, it grew very fast. But once it gets bigger, then you run into a lot of issues. One of the things about solar is it's fragile. We have a problem in the Midwest right now. We have all these solar installations are being destroyed by hail, and they've only been in place 3 or 4 years. And insurance is getting very, very expensive. We have issues with wind. We're going to have issues with offshore wind. Last summer, we had a single 300-foot wind turbine blade, a single blade, break off a tower, washed up on the beaches near Boston. And it took 6 dump trucks to remove the debris. Now we have, our East Coast is pummeled by hurricanes periodically. Sometimes I show a map around New Jersey. There was something like 26 hurricanes and 50 tropical storms in the last 120 years. And boy, when one of these comes ripping up the coast, it's going to rip up all these wind turbines, and we're going to have a tremendous mess. So there's just a lot of problems. They're not cost effective, they're intermittent, and we find the states that are using the most green energy, like California, have the highest electricity rates. California has double the rates of anyone else in the West, and roughly double the United States average rate. They're up to about 33 cents per kilowatt hour. And also, if you look at Europe, you find that the nations that have put in the most wind and solar have the highest electricity prices.
Right.
Denmark and Germany are perfect examples.
Well, so you would think when Al Gore said, when he had his house over in England, he says, I don't want wind turbines out my window. You think that would have been a hint?
Well, that's an issue. That's an issue with all technologies. We don't want them next door, and that's going on with data centers right now too. You know, it's like they're like big warehouses, but there are spots for data centers. So we're going to work through that as well. But yeah, a wind turbine, you wouldn't want one standing over your house. As I talk about in Green Breakdown, there's some studies that have pointed out that the property values decline 10 or 15% when wind turbines are nearby. And some people actually have some medical problems with the low frequency hum of air turbines. So, you know, every technology has an issue. But, you know, the other thing we've done is we're giving them a pass on all the eagles that they're killing, which are protected species in the United States, except if you got a wind turbine, then they don't care. So it's.
Oh, go ahead, Josh. We cut you off.
Steve, we have Thanksgiving coming up in, a little over 4 months.
Yep.
And so everyone gathers together as one big family, but you have the niece or the nephew who went off to the Ivy League public university or the private university. They've come back. They've got this redeemed new knowledge. They're smarter than everyone at the table. Their blue hair begins to talk, and they frame your skepticism of climate as denial. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that's a real shame. And, you know, we've seen that COVID, for example, COVID-19 split apart a lot of families. Some of the old folks didn't want to get vaccinated. The young folks wanted them to. I think people just need to they have the wrong priorities. In my mind, faith and family ought to be at the top of the list, and politics and everything else is down lower. And, you know, when you really come to battles, then you have to stick with your family. So it's a shame. You know, we have a lot of universities teaching that humans are causing dangerous climate change. But, you know, we're also finding that it's not big news in the U.S. anymore. We have a bunch of the news media that have been getting rid of their climate reporters. NPR, CBS News, they've cut their climate staffs way down, and the amount of reporting on man-made global warming is way down. So, you know, it's part of the coming breakdown here. We're seeing people getting back to common sense and away from climatism and net zero.
Now, if they could only do something about the view, get rid of the view. Goodbye, Joey Behar. That would be my Christmas wish.
Interesting. Well, they should invite me on The View. I can give them some counterpoints of view.
Oh, no, she probably will kiss you. You see what she did to that other guy that came on just the other day?
Oh, geez.
Right on the lips. You ready? Pucker up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just couldn't resist. You know, you mentioned data centers, and that is something that has started to come to the forefront, because in one of the notes you sent me about South Carolina being in the forefront of these data centers, and I'm only just starting to learn a lot about it, because I was hearing about its use of water. I was hearing about the use of electricity. We had one candidate that was a libertarian running. He's still running on the libertarian seat for CD1, but he was a nuclear engineer. So I asked him, because there seems to be some movement in cold fusion or small nuclear plants running these data centers rather than relying on local electricity. I'm hearing different things, and it's not really getting out to the public. So I don't know as much as I should about these data centers.
Well, so data centers are just the AI revolution is driving the build out of data centers in the United States. Start of 2024, we had about 2,700 data centers in the US, and they ran the internet and did cloud storage. But now we have over 4,300 data centers. It's up more than 50% in a little more than 2 years. And they're building these all over the country. South Carolina, for example, you had 13 operating. Now the numbers are different depending on who you choose. I use a group called USA Data Centers, but they counted 13 data centers in South Carolina in 2024. Now there are 44, up more than 200% in 2 years. But we have other states building many, many more. Indiana has built 84 new data centers in 2 years. Iowa 73. Georgia has built 130 new data centers in 2 years. And what these are doing is they provide, this is where the internet is run, in the graphics processing units, which are boards, in servers, and they allow them to do artificial intelligence. And so we have this revolution underway, and there is a lot of effect. There's a lot of bad press, as you say, about data centers. I think part of that was and by the way, I should talk about who's doing that. So the guys doing this are the so-called hyperscalers. They're Meta and Microsoft and Google and Amazon, Oracle, and they are spending over $700 billion this year on data centers, and they're expected to spend $1 trillion next year. Now, to give you an idea, a comparison, the United States spends $900 billion a year on elementary and high school education. So by next year, these data center guys are going to be spending as much as the whole country spends on education below the college level, just a fantastically big amount. But I think these companies first, they signed a lot of non-disclosure agreements, and they put it in, and the local communities didn't know what was going on in many cases. So there's been a big backlash and a lot of bad press. But there are ways to do this properly, and we can discuss some of those.
Well, I got a question because, as I was saying, I'm learning now that a lot of these data centers going up don't require water because they're doing recycled water that they weren't doing. There's a lot of areas were complaining their water was just disappearing. A lot of other people were saying that it was drawing on their electrical. Now they're starting to make their own plants with the data centers. But the massive, not acreage, but square miles these data centers take up, we're losing farmland and livestock grazing areas. We are a lot of agriculture here in South Carolina, and it's starting to cause us to now import more agricultural and livestock to feed us.
I think it can be a local issue, and the local people ought to have final say on the data centers, but they do require a lot of land. The Hyperion system that Meta is putting in northern Louisiana, it's going to cover 70 football fields, has multiple buildings, and when it's done, it's going to use twice as much electricity as the city of New Orleans. And so you're right, power is a big deal. But let me talk about the real estate again. Now, in Virginia, there was a developer recently who's paid $7 million for a big chunk of agricultural land, but he was able to sell it for $50 million to people to put in data centers. So, yeah, it's a big number. I think we're not going to have a shortage overall of agricultural land. We could in some local areas. But the key thing is to put these things out in areas that are not next to homes. The zone for industrial. I wouldn't want a warehouse next to my home. I wouldn't want a data center next to my home either. But I think there's places we can put these. Now, as far as the power consumption and the water, those are the other two big issues. So, and again, what power consumption, we talked about Hyperion down in Louisiana. They can take city-sized consumption. If they're just put in and they're hooked on the grid, they're going to raise electricity prices. But increasingly, what these big data centers are doing is they're building their own power plants. The one down in Louisiana has contracted with the utility to build 3 gas-fired power plants on site. And when you do that, it won't raise anybody's electric rates. So the local communities need to know how they're getting power and make sure it isn't going to raise their rates. The second thing you mentioned is water usage. And you're right, if data centers just do evaporative cooling, where they bring in water and they cool the servers and boards, it just evaporates. They keep bringing in more water, and then it uses a lot of water. But as you say, the system for the big data centers is a recycled water, a closed system. The water cools the boards and servers, it evaporates, it condenses again, it's recirculated, and those don't use very much water at all. There's a big one in Mount Pleasant, Wisconsin, just went in with Microsoft. And that's what they're doing. They're recirculating the water. So again, I think the key thing is for the data center people to be transparent, what they're going to do with power, what they're going to do with water, inform the local communities, and then the local communities can make a decision. And we're seeing more and more of that. I think some original non-disclosures were problems for the data center builders.
Well, one of the other things I was hearing also is that the people in the local community, if they were living anywhere too close, they were getting like a reverb or a noise that comes back at them. It does generate noise, which can then affect the person in their nervous system or mental stability, whatever. But it's something that I was hearing. And the other question is why can't they build up instead of out?
Probably more expensive to build up. I was in a small data center near Houston, and it didn't use any water. It was all air cooled. You couldn't hear anything on the outside, but when you went inside, we all wore ear coverings because there was a lot of noise inside. I don't know about the noise so much. Now, I do know some cases where I don't think these things should be noisy. They should be contained inside the building. So I'm not sure about some of this. As I say, there are some cases now. Elon Musk and Tesla, Elon does everything quickly. So he went into West Tennessee and he built his XAI data center with over 200,000 NVIDIA graphics processing boards. He did it in less than a year. He didn't even have the permits, and he had all these environmental groups suing him. And what he did was to power it. Tesla is a solar and a battery company, but he didn't use solar and batteries. He went out and got 35 gas turbines. And the gas turbines he got were used for temporary disaster situations. They were portable. They came in and he put them up, but they made a lot more noise than other gas turbines. They sounded like jet engines. And so all the people are really unhappy. A regular gas power plant isn't very noisy. It's got a turbine inside. I think Musk has gone out and he's getting new turbines now to reduce the noise level. But again, these things shouldn't be right next to houses. They should be out a mile away from anything. And the noise shouldn't be bad, I don't think. But, it's probably a case by case sort of a thing.
There's so much more to get into. It's just like I don't know that much about it, but I am learning. One of the things I was reading, I think it was National Review, maybe 6 months ago or so, a gentleman was writing about his father who was working on cold fusion. And I've also heard people suggesting that these small nuclear plants that you find on the nuclear submarines could also augment these data centers.
Right. So what's going on right now? By the way, the United States closed power plants for about 2 decades. We closed more than 200 coal plants. We closed some nuclear. We closed some natural gas. And then all of a sudden, all the grid operators were going, wow, what is this? All this demand. And they were all surprised. And so what's happening now is they're restarting nuclear plants in Michigan, in Iowa, in South Carolina. You have one where the construction was stopped and they're rebuilding it.
Yeah, I'm still paying for that on my electric bill.
In Pennsylvania, they are extending coal plants past their closing dates in many states. But the big thing is gas-fired power plants. We're building more than 200 gas plants. Texas by itself has plans or is under construction 140 new gas-fired power plants. Just a tremendous amount of these plants, when they're built, are going to be able to produce more electricity than the state of California, just the new ones. And as you say, there's also an opportunity for nuclear. The problem with nuclear has been that the big plants take maybe 10 years to put into place. They take a long time. And all these hyperscalers want to get these things up in 2 or 3 years to serve this exploding AI market. So the Trump administration has been promoting and subsidizing some small modular reactors, which are small nuclear plants built to be constructed in factories and put them on trucks or put them on trains, take them to the site and put them in line. I think there are 11 different companies now that have pilot systems underway to try and do this. These have potential. The thing is, they're still a little bit experimental. We're going to have to see how they go and whether they get the cost down, can be competitive, and how fast they can be brought online. But there is a possibility for a nuclear resurgence.
Wow.
I come from a small town in Northeast Florida. Data centers, like everywhere, are the hot topic right now. These people are not industrial. We have a coal power plant that has recently converted to gas. But where their skepticism lies is having big tech come into their communities and the fear that they are not just going to build a data center, but that they're going to build a data center and then start also impacting local politics or state politics that impact the local politics because of their investments that are within that community.
Yeah.
And they don't trust the big tech oligarchy because they know that many of them are anti-American. And they've censored us, especially during the 2020 election. How do you gain that trust?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of bullets shot at big tech. I don't know that they're such bad people. I think they made early mistakes with non-disclosures and not informing the public. I think Google right now is actually having seminars. They're setting up these seminars in, they take an office building or something. They have all these engineers on site. People can come in and walk around, see exhibits and be talked to. It's a different thing than just going to a town hall. But the populations are forcing these guys to be much more open. I think the local residents should ultimately have the say of whether it goes in or not. But I think the big tech guys are going to be better going forward on all this and try and fit with what the local communities want. And by the way, there are a lot of advantages. The amount of money a medium-sized data center in Illinois is going to pay $2 billion into taxes over 30 years. These are not small numbers. There's an awful lot of money involved. And, we have everybody using AI right now. Pretty soon we're going to have robotics and autonomous cars. This is something that's going to be as big as the electricity revolution, bigger than the internet revolution, is what many people are predicting. So it's here. It's going to be coming. Local folks should have the final say. And I think the hyperscalers should communicate and be very open and transparent about what they're going to do and fit with what the communities need.
It's funny because in high school, I read a lot of different types of books, Ayn Rand and so forth. And everything I'm watching today, I'm going Isaac Asimov and I, Robot. And last night, I caught a news snippet of a gentleman having an interview saying that his AI ordered its own robotic body. And the package arrived with the robotic body, and the AI is asking him to assemble the two together. And I'm thinking, Isaac Asimov, he's up there in the cloudy sky looking down at us going, I told you so. I'm sorry, it's scaring me.
Got his credit card somehow, huh? Yeah, it's kind of goofy. Well, there's always an off switch for these things. I think the doom and
We
gloom
hope.
things,
We hope, unless they find the off switch. They find
crazy,
it.
But education's being changed. If you have a high school student, they're doing their homework with AI right now, and so there's going to be no more writing essays at home. There's just so many changes and things. You can plan your vacation. You say you want to go to Charleston, West Virginia, and you want to stay in a VRBO, and this thing will write out a complete plan for you, all the places you can visit, where you can eat, and everything else, and it does it in about 5 seconds. I mean, AI is really it's not something that thinks, but we've created machines that can pattern match. They go out and they're fed with about 100,000 books, everything that's in the internet. And then they have huge processing power, and they go and connect all these things, and they can create documents in seconds based on your questions. It is remarkable. I'm starting to use them just to answer questions all the time. They're very handy. But this is a transformation that's going on. It's going to change the nation.
It is scary though, because I had a friend of mine. I got my high school reunion coming up, and he says, "Well, are you using AI?" And I says, no. See, I'm old fashioned. You know me, Steve. I've got my clipboard with my handwritten notes, because I'd rather know it for myself and do my own critical thinking. And that's the problem I'm seeing though. People are using it and they're no longer thinking critically.
Well, I'm starting to write a 5th book, and I'm not going to use AI, except I'm going to use it for research, because I can go ask it questions and it'll point me to a whole bunch of articles quickly. And so it's very handy in that regard. But people need to maintain control of all this. I mean, that's a really a key thing.
Yep.
Steve, looking ahead, realistically, what does an America First energy policy look like?
America First. Well, I think the Trump administration has defined that to be heavily reliant on oil and gas, because they recognize that those are are the best things for transportation and for industry. Also nuclear, the Trump administration back in May of last year issued 4 executive orders on nuclear, and one of those called for U.S. nuclear capacity to increase by a factor of 4 by 2050. We have 93 operating nuclear plants today, and Mr. Trump and his administration wanted to boost that, quadruple that. So there's a bunch of different things. But as you know, Mr. Trump is not in favor of wind and solar. The One Big Beautiful Bill, it has set time frames for ending the investment tax credits and all the other subsidies for wind and solar. So he's biased on the side against renewables. I'm not necessarily against renewables. I just don't think we should be developing policies that say if we put in wind and solar everywhere, the storms will get to be less severe. That's modern superstition.
Well, Gregory Wrightstone's a friend of mine, so
Yes.
It's something that we've discussed. And the amount of harmful chemicals that go into a solar panel, and then when they do break, you have to just get rid of it as if it's hazardous. It is hazardous material. These wind, whatever you want to call them, they're being manufactured in China. They're not being manufactured here in the United States, really. Most of them, what we're getting is coming out of China. So we're supporting someone that wants to see us being destroyed. So why would we buy from them unless we turned around and decide to truly manufacture and only manufacture and sell here? I find some pitfalls in a lot of this, where I would say we probably are less destructive doing coal, gas, nuclear. I grew up with the 3 Mile Island just upstate from me. I remember when they built the nuclear power plant right on Long Island. It was just a matter of a couple of miles from our house, and it really benefited us. It wasn't spewing out pollution. It wasn't harmful or anything like that, but it was beneficial. Why would we turn away and use something that could be more destructive than helpful to us?
Well, you make some good points, and Mark Mills, he's an energy expert and wrote the foreword for my last book, Green Breakdown. I've used him a few times. He points out that the largest wind turbine systems in the world have as much plastic in the blades as all of the plastic bottles on Earth. A single huge wind turbine system. So, and then if you ever have to replace those, or if you have to upgrade them, you have to do something with all those wind turbine blades, chop them up, burn them, as they do in Europe, try and put them in landfills. There's issues with all energy sources, and with renewables, it's all the materials you use. It's all the mining you use for metals, for EV batteries, a lot of other different things. So each technology has its problems, and we have to rely on what's most cost effective, what's most reliable, what has real environmental effects, and that's not carbon dioxide in making our decisions about energy.
Yeah. Well, one other thing is, get me started on these electric cars, because my husband had his own auto business, and I said, how come we can put an alternator in a gasoline engine car to keep the battery charged up, and you've got these hybrid cars out there? Why can't we do the same thing with these hybrid cars, so that you're constantly recharging that electrical battery for the electrical part of the car, instead of having all these recharging stations pulling off of the grid? No one's answered me that one yet.
Well, I think the hybrids can recharge themselves. They use gasoline, although we do have some plug-in hybrids as well. But if you take a Prius, for example, I think a Prius is not plug-in, and it recharges the battery from gasoline in the car. So that can be done. It's mostly the ones that are pure EVs that aren't hybrids. All those have to have charging stations. And, I just don't want to spend that much time with my car where I'm over there. I got to be charging for a half hour somewhere all the time. Or if you're in an apartment, you don't have a garage, You're stretching a charging cable over a public walkway. That doesn't work too well.
No, but what also gets me is that everyone's really hyper about these electric cars. They're more environmentally friendly. But with the amount of pollutants they use just to make the one battery, how many miles of strip mining have to be done to make a single battery? Much less now all the petrochemicals you have to make for the wiring and the upholstery and everything else on the car. It is far more of a pollutant than a VW Beetle or a Ford F-150 Ram truck.
Again, Mark Mills points out a single 1,000-pound EV battery requires you to move 500,000 pounds of earth and rock across a number of mines. The International Energy Agency tells us that you need 7 times the special metals in an EV versus an internal combustion engine cars. And these are cobalt and lithium and copper and nickel. And then I like to use the example of cobalt. It's fairly straightforward. The world's biggest producer of cobalt ore is the Democratic Republic of Congo in Africa. They produce about 35%. And it's well known that they use child labor and forced labor to get the ore out of the hills. Then a lot of that gets to be shipped to China, where it's processed to make cobalt metal that goes into a battery for an EV. And there are vast areas in China. One is called Rare Earth Lake. I haven't been there, but as far as you can see, the land has been destroyed, polluted by metal waste. And then it comes to the U.S. and everybody goes, wow, isn't my EV environmentally friendly? But it's, again, it's really, they don't see the supply chain. And I know some people that say, I just wouldn't buy an EV because I know what goes on in getting the metals into the car and into the battery. So there are big issues.
No, as a matter of fact, my husband turns around and he says, well, I want to put lithium batteries in our golf cart. And I said, over my dead body, and you're not parking anywhere in the garage or near the house to begin with, much less getting an electric bicycle. And you've got one of these batteries between your legs, as it could very easily explode. And people have actually been burned and seriously injured on these electrical bicycles because of those batteries.
Yeah, question for your viewers. So what's the #1 source of fires in New York City right now?
Electric bicycles.
It's right. It's electric bikes using lithium batteries. They have over 200 fires a year, and many people that are injured or killed. And they just put these things in, a downstairs storeroom, and they explode and burn the building up. Even good. One of the reasons is people buy low quality bikes. But even good bikes, if they're damaged somehow or they're using a charging system that's not very good, they can burn up as well. So, yeah, that's just one of the examples where lithium batteries can be a big problem.
Not only that, should you get a lithium battery on fire, you cannot use water. You need a special foam in which to put it out. If those lithium batteries are exposed to water, they will burn, they will explode. So you get a simple crack in a bicycle battery and not realize it, and you're out there in the rain, and it's like, bye-bye, have a nice life on the other side. Steve, it is so much fun talking to you. You are a constant guest. You always just send me a message, hey, I got a lot more to talk about. I wanted to touch on the wildfires, but we're going to have you back to come on that one too. But I think some of this is, it's a little too much of a coincidence, all these fires happening at the same time. Anyway, Steve, people can find you at stevegorman.com, where they can get all of your books, learn more about what you're doing, and you also consult at Heartland Institute, correct? Did I forget that?
I'm an unpaid advisor to Heartland. Steve Goreham, GOREHAM.com. If they buy books there, I'll send them signed copies of my books. And these books are colored paperbacks.
Where's mine? Where are my books? Come on.
They're not free, but maybe I should send you one. Anyway, they have color sidebars that are a lot of fun. And here's one of them that's in the Green Breakdown. This is a real headline. A Utah school gives kids disgusting insects to eat in class for climate assignment on cows killing the earth.
I had it on the clipboard. I had that on the clipboard. But we're going to have to cover that the next time you come back on, Steve. All right. God bless. Check out Steve Gorman at stevegorman.com. And we do have our next victim in the studio here, John Strand, who is a J6'er. And I've had Jake Lang on quite a few times. Uh, but you're also running for Congress out of the state of Florida, District 19.
Yes,
So
Ann.
you're just one state away from me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Oh, it is. It is so much fun. And I got to see what my notes are now. You have a book out called Patriot, Plea, and I didn't get a copy, so I couldn't review it for you. The January 6th journey of a political prisoner in the divided states of America.
That's right. I hope you will get a copy. In fact, I don't feel shy to say that I think this book would not only blow your mind, but I think it could change the course of history in our nation if enough people were to read it and take on the responsibility of citizenship that I discuss in this book and really challenge Americans to remember what this country is, who we are as a people, and what we are capable of if we choose to claim the agency that God has gifted all humans with. And I think that's the fundamental premise of America and what's powered us to become the greatest nation in the history of the world.
Well, Josh, what were we talking about when we started the show? This very thing.
That's right.
That very thing we started the show off with, because I still run a Tea Party. I'm a child that grew up and graduated at the bicentennial. And here I am 50 years later celebrating our quintessential. But as I stated, our fathers wrote when they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident.
Exactly.
That the powers are given to us by God, not by man.
Right.
So when I look at these Democratic Socialists of America and all the other, I got some choice words.
Yeah, godless heathens. Godless heathens is what I would say. It's just a factual statement. It's the reality. This is the ultimate binary. You cannot escape that there is only one of two choices. I describe this in the book Patriot, Plea, which you guys can get at johnstrand.com, and I highly recommend that you read it, not only because it's an entertaining and utterly ridiculous story of a modern day American being totally destroyed by their government and thrown in prison as a real political hostage, but also because this book, I think, is a very interesting and exciting kind of challenge to examine who are we as Americans and what does that mean and where are we going? And if we don't reclaim our fundamental human agency, our freedom of choice, our freedom of conscience, and understand how to protect that and how to preserve it, because there are subversive factions on the right that are claiming to be the new right and the new path forward, and yet they are falling prey to age-old deceptions and confusions about freedom of will and freedom of conscience, and really trying to empower a state to enforce a type of neoconservative traditionalism or morality. So morality is essential, and yet we have to also understand how to balance that with God's promise of free will and of agency.
Well, one of the things I'm elated with is that with this new change coming across our nation, the last two election cycles, we've seen more and more young men turning towards conservatism and actually going to church or temple or whatever, but
Yes.
turning more towards God, which gives me hope. This gives me a lot of hope.
I agree.
Now, here in where I live in South Carolina, it is required you teach the founding documents. But honestly, I don't think they go far enough. If we go back, even back into the Bible, the birth of the Republic in Greece and Rome, coming all the way forward through the Magna Carta, the codifying of English common law, where the first time man was allowed to defend himself with a weapon, he was allowed to own property, and you bring it forward through the Mayflower Compact and
That's right.
all the way into this. All of that should be taught, because we as a human being are accustomed to war. Honestly, we are a warring race, and we are accustomed to being conquered or conquering. So we are accustomed to living under tyranny. And the idea to be self-governed is so unique and rare. And we are the only nation now in 250 years to ever survive as a free nation, a republic.
Yes. And it's also important to realize that republicanism as a form of governance was actually first instituted in Genesis, in the Bible, when God called Moses to lead the Israelites out of slavery from Egypt. And then he began trying to manage a civil society in an ordered fashion, and found himself overwhelmed and exhausted. And his father-in-law Jethro said, Moses, I love you, but you're crazy if you think you're going to be able to keep up with this. So you need to find upstanding men of moral integrity and character. And his litmus test was that they fear God and that they hate bribes. Those were the criteria. And then you're going to find such men of moral integrity and assign them over groups of thousands, hundreds, and 10. And so that was the representative and decentralized form of governance that Moses then instituted. And of course, that was fleshed out through the 10 Commandments and the Torah and that whole body of the rule of law that God described to the nation of Israel, and which our founding fathers studied at length and quoted more from Genesis and Deuteronomy than they did even from John Locke, Montesquieu, and other classic philosophers. So the founding fathers were very well educated, and the bulk of their education and confidence in their understanding of reality comes from the infallible truth of God's word from Genesis all the way through Revelation. And of course, the climax of God's story, the gospel of Jesus Christ, which they were dedicated to. But it's so important and existential for us to return to these things. If you return to a biblical model, there's just nothing in the Bible that says that the government should be running schools and providing education. And the founding fathers didn't believe that either. So there's no reference in the Constitution, and there's no example for the government being in the business of conducting education. It's not their role. And I've come to learn over the course of my life that the government is terribly inefficient and actually damaging and horrific when they do anything that is not their proper role to oversee and to manage. So the idea of self-governance and ordered liberty would be that humans in their own individual capacity have maximum freedom to do and pursue any of the things that they believe God has called them to do and to pursue in their life. Now, government is a necessary evil, if you will, because we have a flawed human nature, and that's inescapable. So that's necessary for certain core functions, but those should be narrowly and strictly defined. And we should be vigilant in keeping the government restrained within those boundaries. And of course, that's been forgotten for a century.
Has not. I know Josh is tearing at the bit. Go ahead, Josh.
So, John, I want to get into your story, and correct me if I have any of these pieces of information wrong.
Sure.
But you refused a plea deal. You endured solitary confinement rather than admit guilt for peacefully being at the Capitol on January 6th.
That's
Can
correct.
Can you explain to our audience why was that principle worth the personal cost?
Oh man, what a great question. The first thing I would encourage people to do is make sure you go to johnstrand.com/J6. So /J6, that link takes you directly to a short video. It only takes about 13 minutes worth of footage. That was my entire journey through the Capitol building on security camera footage. And it's extraordinary. I narrate it. So from my POV as it's happening, you can understand what had actually happened to John Strand while he was there, and how did he come to be in the building and all of those things. But of course, I was completely innocent, peaceful, nonviolent, obviously. And I had a legitimate purpose for being there in the first place, although everyone had a valid reason to be there, literally enshrined in the First Amendment, to protest their government for a redress of grievances. And we certainly had a very significant and legitimate grievance. But be that as it may, my story proceeds after January 6th, when I continued my work. I'm the creative director of America's Frontline Doctors and goldcare.com. So that's a nonprofit and a medical freedom platform. And we were pushing back against the overreach of the government during COVID and a lot of those lies and confusions. And that was part of what brought the government attention on me, I believe. So I was assaulted by an FBI SWAT team 12 days after J6 at home at the time in Beverly Hills, one of the safest places in the world. But my front door was shattered by a battering ram. I was disappeared in jail for 4 days without a phone call, and then came out to find myself facing 5 counts from a federal indictment, including a 20-year felony. And then I was given the equivalent of a get out of jail free card with a single misdemeanor plea deal. So if I just signed that false confession and played along with the Washington, D.C. program, then they would send me home with, wipe away a 20-year felony and give my life back. And yet I refused, because there is never a right time to do the wrong thing, Josh. That's my true belief. And if I was not to stand by that in the most painful of moments, then what good is my conviction? What can I speak of virtue or courage if I am willing to just let it go down the tubes when the pain is too much? And as a Christian, it fundamentally came down to this idea where Jesus tells us to pick up your cross and follow me. And it's an interesting idea, and it sounds extreme and painful, and it can be, and it certainly was in my case. But the idea really is, are you going to crucify, which is to say nail to a tree, like in the most visceral way you can imagine, sort of just make a declaration that I will kill the inherent desire within myself to supersede God's calling and God's design and God's order? And will I be obedient to what God has said is true and good, rather than my own opinion about what feels good or what I believe to be good in my own mind? And that was the fundamental choice that I was facing. So I knew this was a lie and it was a setup. I also knew it was a political strategy to destroy President Trump and the conservative movement. And that greatly motivated me out of patriotism to defend my country and my Constitution, and to refuse to betray my fellow American citizens. And I saw that plea deal as a betrayal. And fundamentally, it was a choice between right and wrong, good and evil. And I knew I must make the right choice and choose good, no matter how much evil was arrayed against me, because ultimately God calls me to make the obedient choice faithfully towards pursuing the good, and then to trust and rely in him for the result and the outcome. And that's the hard part, because we can't see it from where we're standing when we have to make that choice. That's the idea of faith that coincides with courage, to say, I'm going to choose what's right, and I'm going to believe what I can't see yet, hoping and knowing and trusting that God will bring it about in the future.
Well, you know, from everything I've been reading and seeing about you, you are the favorite to win. So my prayers are with you.
Thank you.
You've got a lot of excellent backers and everything. One of the things I saw, and I'm sure you're cheering this on, that just passed through the House, restricting trading of stocks if you are sitting in office. And
Yes.
then they tag onto the back of that a form of the SAVE Act, not exactly the SAVE Act, but the form of the SAVE Act. And I had people just telling me why the SAVE Act, but why you have to present, identification. And it's because the SAVE Act is actually already in the Constitution. It is in the, I had it up here, Article 15, which says the right of the citizens to vote shall not be denied. They don't say anyone to vote, but they say specifically citizens.
There you
And
go.
how do you prove you are a citizen, but unless you have a valid identification? And back then, you had to produce papers back then. So what's the difference between then and now?
And the Constitution, I believe in Article 1, guarantees to all the states and the residents of those states a republican form of government. That's a sacred guarantee of the Constitution when they enshrined it. And so if you have a state, California, for example, that is wildly fraudulent in their elections, they're not even hiding it anymore. We can see it in plain daylight. I mean, you don't get a bunch of mail-in ballots for two different Democrats, and they only go to the one Democrat that needed to catch up and defeat the Republican. That's just total. I mean, it's like, it's humor.
Wait a minute, but they will accept the ballot without a postmark on it. You write on the envelope the date you were turning it in.
Yeah,
not postmark, no proof.
Yeah, so the levels of fraud are so expansive and so layered and so voluminous that it's just a mockery. It's just a total parody to even consider that elections in California are anything other than a total scam and a total sham. So that being the case, and I don't think there's any credible argument against it, then we have fraudulent elections at scale in the largest state in the entire country. It's like the 6th largest economy on earth. And yet we're going to pretend that we have a valid Republican form of government in the United States of America when a state that large and powerful is conducting totally illicit and fraudulent elections? No, it's a joke. We do not have a valid Republican republic in this country anymore. It has been hijacked, weaponized, and poisoned and destroyed in various directions. It's been weaponized to the point where a person like myself, completely innocent, was horrifically abused in federal prison for a year. They asked for 8 years at my sentencing, you guys. At sentencing, they tried to lock me up for almost a decade. But I pled not guilty and appealed from prison. Not sure how many years I would be rotting in there or get killed, because federal prison is no joke. But I was trusting in God. He delivered. We won at the Supreme Court. I was vindicated, released after exactly 366 days because it was a leap year. And then ultimately exonerated within the legal system when the DOJ vacated all charges with prejudice. which is an absolute miracle and just a historic feat of incredible ramification. But ultimately, it's just a testament to faith and courage and God's power and faithfulness to honor and deliver one of his children, relying on him. And I think that's the core of the inspirational story that you'll find in Patriot Plea. So I really hope you guys will read it and share it, because it's really powerful.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm looking at what has happened to you, and I look at now Jack Smith, who weaponized government on that. What would be the first thing you would want to do once you took office?
Great question. The absolute most important thing in our nation is securing our elections, as I just explained, because it's a total farce without that. And we have deeply fraudulent elections and mistrust, legitimate mistrust in the whole institution of government and in the process of democratically electing our own leaders and our own representation. So my number one priority as a congressman in Florida's 19th district is passing the SAVE Act and otherwise doing everything necessary to safeguard legitimate elections in this country. And shortly behind that, the most important thing is to reinforce the security of our nation and protect our sovereignty. So the biggest practical problem in our country is the mass invasion of the scam of immigration across multiple different metrics. So I am proposing the 2020 Sovereignty Act. That is 20 years of zero immigration, 20 million deportations accelerated over the next 4 years. I believe there are much more than 20 million necessary, but we'll start there, and I want to see it happen at least 4 to 5 million per year, greatly accelerated. How do we do that? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We execute and enforce a total debanking of illegal aliens. They are cut off from financial institutions. Anyone carrying FDIC insurance, FDIC-backed insurance, which is basically everyone, is penalized by the federal government if they facilitate any transaction for an illegal alien. That will stop very quickly because they're in the business to make money. And illegal aliens will then begin to self-deport themselves much more quickly and much less expensively for you and me, the taxpayer. So we need that basic common sense, but a firm upholding of the rule of law to protect our borders, to protect our economy, our job markets, and our housing markets for our own citizens. And at least as importantly, to shore up and recognize the importance of proper assimilation into this country and the protection of our culture. Our nation and our culture is and must remain a Judeo-Christian culture and a nation built on Judeo-Christian values. It is not a theocracy. We do not institute a forced version of Christianity as a national religion. So you could say it's not a Christian country from that technical perspective, but it is historically and must remain in practical terms and in spiritual terms, a Judeo-Christian nation built on the foundation of the Bible and the biblical truths that come from Genesis through Revelation, which openly recognize and protect the sacred gift of God to all humans, which is cognitive liberty, freedom of conscience, your own human agency, which God gave you. And then he protects that by God. Even God won't force you to believe in him. He gives you that freedom.
Yeah, he does. We're down to our very last minute, and I wanted to go into a bunch of other things. So we have to have you come back on. No ands, ifs, or buts.
Okay.
Because you were talking about America does have a culture and a society. And the world finally saw this at the FIFA Games. And they came back saying, America's not as bad as what everyone's telling us about. And they're really coming to love us and respect us. And one final note, when I quoted the Constitution on this little tiny book is 50 years old.
Wow.
I've had this since high school. And a matter of fact, I counted the other day, I've got 8 copies of the Constitution, and this is the one I refer to all the time.
And
apart.
You noted that the worldwide perspective of America was so poor, and then they actually came here to see it face to face, and they realized it was misrepresentation. It was a lie. And it goes to show you that fake news is a global problem.
That is. Well, John, again, we have to have you come back on, so I'll talk to Kim, and God bless you. People can find you at johnstrand.com. They want to learn about your J6, just /J6. God bless you, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you so much, folks. God bless you too. Take care.
Take care.
Josh, thank you for joining us. And hey, listen, I'm going to have you pop in every now and then to help.
Sure, absolutely.
And we'll have a blast. You are fantastic to work with. So people can find you at Real Josh Perry over on X, and then follow you up through your website. So Josh,
always a pleasure.
Thank you. It is about my pleasure. God bless. Take care.
God bless.
All right. So that's all we got, folks, here for today. We will be back next week. I'm lining up new guests, and I have a couple potential, but I don't want to blow it too early, too soon. So I will see you here, same bat time, same bat station on next Friday. Good night, and God bless.